Hello wine lovers, this is Trophy Wine Hunter. This is a special review of my time at Blue Grouse Vineyards on the Cowichan Valley. I'm really high on this winery and Unsworth Vineyards, which are the two wineries on Cowichan Valley or near Duncan and Mill Bay that Jackson Family of Wines out of the US has purchased. And they put a lot of money into these wineries, and I've stated in other videos, I think this is going to be a hotbed for the Pinot Noir and Pinot Gris grapes and other, as I learned, Germanic clones, which they are growing there. The facility is magnificent. This is the tasting room that you can see on the first floor, and they've also opened up the second floor for more higher end tastings or reserved tastings upstairs. And we got a chance to taste with the general manager, Michael Abbott, and also the new winemaker, Stacy Hornemann. And it was a really great opportunity to get to know them, the winery, and Stacy's style. So as you can see by these photos, it's a magnificent place to taste. And it's actually very nice weather. It's got a little cool breeze, a little bit cooler than the Okanagan. I really think it's going to support the Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris, and Chardonnay, plus a lot of the grape types that are kind of Germanic clones, which grow very well in Cowichan Valley. So it's a really exciting thing. We drank a lot of wine, as you can see. We drank 9 different bottles that night, and got to know Stacy a little bit. So here's a little video on Stacy and her background and why she got into wine. So Stacy, just tell me a little bit about your history. Like, how did you get started in the wine?
Great
how did
question.
you become a winemaker?
Really kind of happenstance, not by chance, but you're 18 and you're graduating high school, and they're like, so what are you going to be for the rest of your life? And I was like, well, what can I see myself doing for the rest of my life? Went to Davis, and it was great because you had to take organic chemistry, but it wasn't the one for like chemical engineering.
Yeah.
It was great. Like, I love chemistry, but like, how much of this do I need to know?
Yeah.
For sure. And I like that you make something, and I can't think of another product that you get to make that has sort of not even the cachet, but like I can pick up a bottle of wine from a vintage that I've done in the past, and I can tell you who worked that vintage and what the vibe was. And sometimes, like, disgustingly, and like Marcia and I would talk about this, I can tell you what tank it was fermented in the winery. Just because you build these memories, and then you get to, it's like revisiting an old friend.
Yeah.
We did this one sort of library tasting up on the estate at Stone Street, and it was cool. We had, I think it was a new hire tour. They take everybody up at some of these vineyards to show you exactly like this is like how badass what you're about to do is. And we brought this bottle of 2010 Cabernet to the vineyard where it was sourced from in 2010, and I said, this hasn't been back here since 2010. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what other product can you do that with that's not, a piece of jewelry or something? Yeah. The place where I worked my first vintage completely ruined my expectations for the rest of any career in the wine industry.
Where was that?
It was at Trefethen in Oak Knoll of Napa.
Okay.
Love their wines, love the family, love the people there.
And then from there you went to...
Interned at Mum Napa, because I was like, sparkling sounds cool. I like that. And it was more lab focused of an internship. So the internship at Trefethen was cellar and lab.
Yeah.
So you'd sort of rotate through depending on whatever. We had 3 interns. Yeah. Anyway. And then Mum was just solely in the lab.
Okay.
So I was there for 6 months. You got to see sort of soup to nuts.
Yeah.
You were putting wines into Shiraz, you were disgorging, and you were vinifying base wines at the same time.
Yeah.
So learned a lot there. Great group of people there as well. Great organization. Like 14. What did I do? I worked at Saint Supri.
Okay.
I didn't work in the winery at all.
Okay.
I worked in the vineyard, and then I started their farm to table program, and I planted like a 1/4 acre garden in that behind the winery, tomatoes, eggplant, herbs, like anything I wanted to plant, which was pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway, not a bad job. I love like agriculture in general. Yeah. Minored in horticulture, so I love plants. Like my house is covered in plants. It's kind of like debilitating to
and then
free time.
After Saint Supri, you went
to Saint Supri. Then I did a very short stint in the lab at Sutter Home, about 3.5 weeks. It was good to see that as well. And then I worked at this custom crush winery, and they have their own label called Matera down in Oak Knoll as well. So we had lots of different clients from every price point. We did a lot of production for some of the bigger Cabernet and Chardonnay houses there. Got to meet a lot of people, got to learn a lot of things. Still keep in contact with those people as well. You get to learn a lot and see where they are now. And then had a quarter life crisis. Moved to the East Coast for 3 months. If you're going to fail, fail fast. Moved back, and that's where I started at Stone Street as a harvest enologist in 2017.
Wow. And then from there, here.
I was there until sort of the middle of 2023 and moved up here.
Great.
Or 2024. Yeah.
We came in hot with the first wine with a really interesting wine, which is their 2024 Siegerrebe, which is a cross of Magdalene Angevin and Gewürztraminer. So you get the aromatics of Gewürztraminer, but you get a little bit more kind of an almondy taste to it with the Magdalene Angevin. I thought it's a very interesting wine. My notes were honeysuckle and lychee on the aroma, tangerine, citrus, apricots with a musty aftertaste on the palate. I think it goes really well with spicy foods. The aroma is very inviting, and the taste, again, tastes a little bit more like a Pinot Blanc with the almondy effect to it. And it's really useful to taste this. I thought it's quite a unique wine. My score is 88 points. But all through the process, we're talking about Stacy about different things. And one of the things we talked about in the next video you'll see is the use of neutral oak. She uses it quite a bit. She's very experienced with it with her last kind of winemaking position in the States. And, you always talk about oak, but sometimes with neutral, you don't have to have that oaky taste. It just imparts different characteristics, which she will talk about in this next video.
Neutral oak, it's a little bit harder to control the temperature, which is a good thing. You get a little bit more sort of micro oxygen ingress as it ferments and ages. So that tight ponytail that I was talking about sort of comes loose a little earlier in the night. And you just get this texture from the slightly elevated temperature of fermentation. So if you think about the size of a barrel, we only fill them to about 200 liters, because if not, you get this volcano of fermentation when yeasts are like getting going. But you can't regulate the temperature. That's a big thing. So they tend to ferment a little bit warmer, and that's really helpful in creating that body. You could argue that you lose some of the aromatics, but I don't think that you have to. And I think the Siegerrebe, maybe just because it's a potent potable to begin with, you're still going to get something at the end, but I don't think there's anything lacking there. But we do some different things with the juice to make sure that we get aromas at the end. But yeah, neutral barrel fermentation is a way to build structure without having to build sugar. So you have this palate presence that couples with the anchoring minerality, but it's not sugar, and it really just sits on your palate and takes you on a ride.
Next, we were served the 2024 Bacchus. And all these wines, I'll have the prices in the comment section, all around $29, something like that. Very interesting. I've always thought of Bacchus as a grape that grows sweet wines, but this was done in a dry style. So this is kind of neat, although I do prefer a sweeter style of Bacchus. So for me, this was not for my palate, but it's a very interesting wine and another example of the interesting things that Stacy is trying up there. She's also going to make an Ortega, which she thinks is going to be brilliant, which is going to take another year or two before she releases it. But my notes on this wine was white peach and flowers on the nose, peach, lilacs, lime, and herbs on the palate. But I did prefer a sweeter style Bacchus. This is not really to my taste preference, so I rated it 86 points. Next wine we tasted is their Pinot Gris, which I thought is an exceptional wine. I really enjoyed this. It's a very prototypical Pinot Gris. My tasting notes is it was, again, not overly peely and grapefruity, which I enjoy. It was orange, lemon peel, and acacia on the aroma, cantaloupe, pears, and lemon peel with a mineral aftertaste. I thought it was very, very nice. I scored it 89 points, and the next video you'll see Stacy talking a little bit about it. She's going to describe the different vineyard sites it came from, but unfortunately I cut her off, and I think we didn't get the get to the third site. And it's just because she's such an engaging winemaker.
I think I would drink this Pinot Gris because it's fresh cantaloupe. It has this freshness about it, and the vines from here sort of anchor the minerality. So we blended 3 different vineyards to make this wine. The first is from the estate just down here, some of the oldest vines in British Columbia, 1990, planted on own root. Second vineyard is a little bit further south, so a little cooler, really well-drained soils, older vines, but not like super old. I think 2004, but still well established. They're definitely coming into their own. That's the aromatic component of the blend.
Next wine is their Charme de Lille sparkling white. It's non-vintage. And we tasted this twice. One the first night with Stacy, and the second day in a tasting with the assistant tasting manager, Genevieve Charbonneau. And both times was lovely. This is supposed to be a wine that's really taking over their restaurant market. A lot of Lower Mainland restaurants are picking up this because it's so enjoyable. So it's a blend of Schönberger, Müller, Thurgau, Bacchus, Pinot Gris, and Chardonnay. My notes, very drinkable, enjoyable as a summer sipper. It's made using the Charmat method, which is the same method used to produce Prosecco. It is white flowers, guava and lilacs on the nose with melons, ripe peaches, grapefruit, and lime on the palate. It has good body and it can pair well with grilled fish. My rating is 88 points. And in the next video, you'll hear Genevieve talking about this wine.
This is our sparkling Charme de Lille. It is a blend of Germanic, mostly Germanic varietals that grow really well on the island. Schönberger, Gewürz, some Bacchus, a little Pinot Gris in there as well. And it's a Charmat, or the tank method, same way they make Prosecco. It's going through a second fermentation in the tank. Really fruity, really fun, got some nice zest to it. Beautifully balanced wine, very popular with almost everybody.
One of the great things about tasting with the winemaker at the winery in their own element is we're just talking about various things. And she was very excited about the 2020 sparkling that she's produced. It's not out yet. And she was like telling us, hey, it's a little young. But I said, listen, let's try it. So she did have a bottle that's bottled, and we did try it. So this is a picture of the 2019. The 2020 is not released yet, and it does need a little bit more time in bottle. But I thought it was still very nice, and it was a great chance to taste it kind of but you can tell the quality is there. So it's a blend of 50% Müller Thurgau, 25% Ortega, 25% Pinot Gris. And the Ortega grape is a real special grape for Stacy and this winery. That's going to be a star. So look out for that grape varietal. She's going to put a lot of effort, and she's really excited about that. My tasting note, still very yeasty and needs a bit more time in the bottle. Apples, citrus note elements with some creaminess and brightness on the aftertaste, but it still needs time. Right now it's about 88 points, but I think it's going to get better. Next wine is the 2024 Rosé. My wife and most other people love this wine. It's, again, a great crowd pleaser, and it's an evolution. So the 2023 blend was different from 2024. In 2024, they had 63% Pinot Noir, 15% Pinot Gris, 12% Gamay, and 10% Chardonnay. I drank it at the winery, came home and drank it again. I have a mini review, which I'll put at the end of this video. But my notes, it's a strawberry, rhubarb, citrus, grapefruit, and peel. It's not overly complex, but it has enough body to pair really nicely. I paired it with lobster and Chinese barbecue pork. It's got floral and dark fruits on the nose, so my rating was 88 points. Next wine we tasted twice, once with Stacy on the nighttime tasting, and then the next day we tasted it again with Genevieve, the assistant tasting room manager. And both times we thought it was great. From my perspective, again, it needs a little bit of age on this, but it is quite a nice use of oak barrels, but again, neutral oak, so you're not going to have that much oakiness. And my notes here was it needs a bit more age. It is citrusy and lemony, but it's also creamy on the palate. Apples, pears with marzipan, and a mineral aftertaste. I have it 87 points, but I think it'll get better with age. And the next video, the assistant tasting manager, Genevieve, is going to kind of talk about this wine.
French oak barrel. For the most part, I believe there were 7 barrels. One of them was new. So there's a little bit of new, but very, very subtle. We wanted to maintain the freshness of this wine, but still let it go through mallow so it's getting that nice creaminess on the palate with that touch of buttered popcorn, toasted coconut, lots of green apple and pear.
And the last wine we tasted that night with Stacy was, again, advantage of we're going there. She was just saying, hey, the 2023 vintage of the Estate Pinot is great. Would you like to try it? And I said, I'd love to try it. It's not out yet, but it was really exceptional. So I was really happy to have that wine. To me, the vintage, this wine really showed the most that Cowichan Valley can do with Pinot. It was a hotter year and it showed through in this wine. There's not as much austerity. So my notes, subtle dark fruit flavors of blackberry, cherries, and pomegranate with medium tannins and a good mid palate. Good acidity, well balanced, but still young. I rated 89 points, one of my favorite wines of the whole tasting. And I think it's going to be a spectacular wine. It won't be released until the fall, later on this fall, but something to look forward to. And so we ended the night, and again, we're just talking, and Stacy was talking about how much she loved her Ortega wines and how good they were. So we decided to go down and taste some barrel samples, and it was really interesting. I just said, listen, I don't know much about barrel tasting. Can you kind of go through it? And it was a really great discussion, and she took us through a couple barrel tastings, and the next video will show that. I'm here at Blue Grouse Winery with the winemaker, Stacy Hornemann. We've had a little bit of wine, so we're kind of a little bit happy here, but she's going to do some barrel tasting. And one of the things I said to her is, like, not many people actually know how to barrel taste. So she's going to go through it and walk through it with us. So let's do that.
So tasting out a barrel, not hard. You're removing liquid from one of these barrels. You have cool tools. This is called a wine thief. You steal the wine from the barrel. But we're going to taste some new barrels of Chardonnay. And so the thing to remember when you're tasting a new barrel is it's usually part of a blend where there are perhaps other new barrels, which we'll taste, as well as used barrels. So what we're going to taste is 100% new oak.
Okay.
It's not going to be as potent and as impactful as the influence that we'll have on the final blend.
Yeah. So basically, it's just one thing that you're going to blend.
One thing. Yeah. So this is your first brew over here, tea bag, right? Like I like to talk about barrels as tea bags, like brewing them the first time, that's your first fill, it's a new barrel. Second fill, you were to brew a tea bag again, you're still going to get flavor. It's not going to be as potent, but you're still going to get flavor. Yeah. And as you continue to brew, it's going to become less and less impactful.
So it's really a learning experience in terms of for you. So we shouldn't expect, whenever someone goes to a winery and does a barrel tasting, they shouldn't expect the finished product. They should expect parts of the finished product.
So one of my favorite things to talk about is people talk all the time about, well, how much new French oak, how much new American oak. It's hard to understand how that metric is quantified. So let's say we have 10 barrels and we have 3 new barrels. You have 30% new French oak, right? Because 3 of those 10 barrels, I'm not great at math, but that's 30%. So that's the impact that you're going to get. Right now, the Chardonnays that we're going to taste are in 4 different sort of vinifications, or 4 different lots from 2 different vineyard sites, and picked at different times and a multitude of other differences. But there's a total of about 17% new French oak by volume. Okay. So impact.
So let's do a quick taste.
Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be, I'm going to move over here a little bit because I overestimated the length of my arms, just like when I play volleyball. So this is a barrel from this cooperage, and coopers have started sort of making Civics instead of 4-door sedans, where they'll give a name for a specific concoction of barrels and forests and toast levels, etc. So this is a medium long with untoasted heads. So those do different things. So these just got topped up.
For wine consumers out there, basically what this is telling you is when you ask people about how much oak barrels, you probably don't know what you're talking about at all. It's totally useless because the knowledge that we get is so limited. And so really that's not going to be helpful at all. You might as well just drink the wine and leave the winemaking and the technical things to the winemakers. Let's taste.
It's how we nerd out and like fill our time. We need to do it. So this is a new barrel.
So this is going to be very oaky, right?
So maybe. So on the spectrum of impact that a barrel can have, the toast relates to how impactful it is, the type of oak, whether or not the head of the barrel is toasted. Those are things that will change how impactful the barrel is going to be. So this is a new barrel. We'll taste a couple other new barrels, and you'll be able to see how impactful they are sort of on the spectrum of impact.
So I find this very racy in terms of the acidity. Wow.
Does it smell like Chardonnay?
It not as much as I thought. I would think in the final product.
So a leaner year, you're going to get more linear flavors and aromas. I feel like this barrel really impacts the texture, lifts the mid palate, and gives the wine structure. We'll taste a neutral barrel or a barrel that's been fermented in many times before. You'll be able to see the difference.
Okay. Little scenic interlude as we go for the second tasting, which is the next day. Again, we did this in the tasting room. And I thought it's important to kind of keep tasting and deep diving these wines and really get to know them. So this next wine is their Reserve 2022 Pinot Gris. And we tasted this with the assistant tasting room manager, Genevieve. I thought this was an exceptional wine. It's a little bit more expensive. I think it's closer to $35 or $40. I'll have that in the comments section. But really, really exceptional wine. One of my favorite wines of the day or the whole tasting. My kind of notes, the fruit comes from 35-year-old vines, 25% neutral French oak, and 75% in stainless steel. It is the first vintage of a Reserve Pinot Gris that they made. And my notes, orange peel, citrus, lemon, lime, grapefruit on the aroma, citrus, grapefruit, and on the palate. Really smooth and a good texture. My rating was 91 points, and you'll see a little bit of these comments echoed by Genevieve.
This time we've made a reserve. It's kind of Stacy's baby.
Oh, wonderful.
And it's created using the fruit from our old vines on the property. So 35 years-ish old. Production's starting to go down a little bit, but quality really going up. And she took the very best fruit from that vineyard. Very careful attention paid in the cellar to how it was made. 25% of it went into neutral French oak, 75% in concrete, and then blended together before bottling. Half of it went through malolactic fermentation. So just to give you, again, that little creaminess. It's got a nice depth of character and flavor, a really long finish. I actually didn't love it when it very first came out, and then a month later I tried it again. I was like, oh my gosh, it just needed that little bit of time in the bottle. So beautiful wine to have with halibut, risotto.
The Quill is an interesting product. They only produce a white and a red, and these are non-vintage wines and a blend of grapes from different estates around. It's not from their estate, from different vineyards other than their estate. It's interesting because now they're getting bigger, and a lot of their wines in the future, they are going to use not just estate-grown grapes, but also grapes from around the areas. So this one is mostly a blend of Schonberger and Riesling with a bit of Pinot Gris and Ortega. My notes, lots of sweet fruit with apricots, honey, and citrus elements. I like the acidity. I think it's a really fun wine to drink. 88 points in my books. And here's a little description from Genevieve.
When we first moved, when the Bruners first bought the winery from the Kiltz family, the Kiltzes were 100% estate. And so in order to maintain the integrity of the Blue Grouse label, they created the Quill line to indicate that it contains grapes that were grown perhaps not on the property, or a blend, a mix of some of our own and some not. So that's how these evolved, and we've sort of narrowed it down. We've eliminated a lot of the Quill line at this point. And we are doing just the Quill White and the Quill Red, and they're both blends. So the only two that we blend grapes, besides the rosé and the sparklings. And so this is I would call it like an island field blend. The number of grapes that grow really well on the island, mostly Schonberger Pinot Gris. It has a little bit of Ortega, a little bit of Bacchus in there as well. And this one is incredibly popular. This is like what I call the crowd pleaser. When someone comes in and they don't know anything about wine, And they're like, I will just need a white. I'm like, well, you probably want this one because it's really fruity. It's a little bit sweeter than the others. So, and people like that. It's kind of got those Gewürzy characteristics to it. Hints of grapefruit, but lots of lychee, melon, stone fruit. Very easy to drink. Yeah.
I forgot to mention that with Stacy, we did taste the 2016 Pinot Noir. I thought it was a great example of island Pinot Noir, very much like Alsace Pinot Noir, except not as spicy and not as much intensity of black fruit flavors. I thought it was light with red fruit and good tannin structure. My rating of the 2016 vintage was 86 points. And then we got to taste the 2022, which is the current vintage of the wine, of the Pinot Noir. And compared to 2023, which is a stunning vintage in my opinion, it was comparatively austere, not as much fruit, much more like tea leaves, cranberry, and spice. So I rated that wine 85 points. So I really think the 2023 is a great vintage for Pinot Noir. For Blue Grouse, and they're starting to really come into their own. And I would watch for this wine from the 2023 vintage onwards. Then we got to taste the Blue Grouse Pinot Noir Reserve 2021. It's a little pricier, I think $75, but a spectacular wine. This again is the first vintage of Reserve that they've produced. My notes on this wine were that it's peppery with black cherry and earthiness or moss on the aroma, black cherry, black plums, and a good body and long aftertaste. I think it's still young and needs a little bit more time. I rated it 91 points, but I think it's going to get better. And then the next two videos, you'll see Genevieve's comments and then my tasting notes on that day of this wine.
Excellent year, 21. That was it. Started with the heat dome. So everything like accelerated, but then it kind of cooled down and we had this kind of more moderate summer that just went and went and went. So really nice ripeness on the fruit, but that long growing season. This is a blend of Saison Vineyard, which is just north of us, and our older estate vineyard. The best fruit, of course, from those two vineyards. Saison is a dry farmed, organic, really warm climate vineyard, and we do buy a bunch of grapes from them, mostly Pinot Noir. And so this one was 50% in the terracotta amphora after some foot treading, and I have video of Bailey Williamson foot treading this to prove it. Oh, wow. And so 50% in terracotta amphora before being moved to barrel for about 20 months or so. And it's got, again, that little bit more fruit depth, a little bit of that spiciness, a bit of that West Coast forest floor, like that cedar, pine needle, moss note. Lots of cherry, of course, pomegranate. Beautiful wine to have with chanterelles, wild mushrooms, especially on a wood-fired pizza, or planked salmon, or roast duck.
Wow. So this is special. We're getting to taste the 2021 Reserve Pinot Noir. This is only Pinot Noir they've made that's in reserve form. Comes from their own grapes and also some grapes from another vineyard site. They did 50% in amphora. So amphora normally gives a little more freshness to the wines, which I see in this wine. And on the nose, I find it quite peppery in style. I think it has a little bit more fruit. It's a better year. A lot more fruit on this, a lot more intensity of flavors on this. We have a little black currants, black plums. I really see the fruit involved in that. The aftertaste is nice and long. I think the mouthfeel is excellent and a lot more. I like the fruit intensity on this wine. Cheers.
Final comments. I tried to do a pretty extensive tasting at the winery. I tasted with the winemaker, without the winemaker, at night, at daytime, with food, without food, various wines, various vintages. So I tried to come up with some kind of general concepts. What do I like? I think their Pinot Gris is stunning. I think it's great. whether you've got their estate wine or their reserve. I think their Pinot Noirs are really good, especially after the 2023 vintage. They're really gunning. Their reserve is exceptional also, although a little bit more pricier. There's some really exciting things they're doing with things like their sparkling wine, their Charme de Lille, their Chardonnay. They're all good, and they've got some interesting grape types, in particular the Siegerrebe, and also look out for their Ortega. In extensive talks with Stacy, she's really excited about this grape varietal in particular. I have my doubts, but she knows what she's doing. I've done some barrel sample tasting. It's going to be magical. So watch out for that grape type when it comes out. I think her first vintage will be next year. Really excited about this winery, and I think there's some really great things and some real value to be had if you get in early on these wines. Hope you've enjoyed this tasting. Until next time, happy drinking.